Good evening, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity just to share on. And I think this is a very important topic, and the whole series, the idea of building healthy church, building healthy families, and Jesus being the center, the foundation is critical. Particularly like this, the framing of the topic about making the church a safe place for children and young people, because making suggests present continuous. It suggests that we always need to be doing this. And even though it's not implicit, I also want to suggest it's everybody's business. It's not just the elders or the deacons or the Sunday school teachers. Once you're a member of Hampton Green Gospel Chapel, it's your business to make the church a safe place for children and young people. So kudos just a framing topic, and let's get into it. Before I go, I hope we have some time for discussion. I want to hear from you. Now there are about 4 ways where how we think we can make the church a safe place. But before we do that, I think it's important for us to answer the question: why do we need to make the church a safe place for children and young people? I believe the why question is one of the more important questions to ask and respond, because why gives credence to the purpose. So let me hear from you. Just quickly, give me some. I have 5. There are way more than 5, I'm sure. But just unmute your mic and tell me some reasons why you think we need to make the church a safe place for children and young people. And I'll share my 5.
Child care and protection services. It's
right.
it's legal by law.
The legal framework, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a legal requirement. That's good. Thanks, Elder Brian.
Generally, the church is looked upon as a different place, a place that's supposed to stand out for the good. And when I say the good, in different areas, and there's so much bad out there. So when it comes to the church, really, I think people should look to the church for the safety then and the good that can be meted out to people who come.
Agreed, 100%. Agreed. Thanks, Uncle Roddy. Anybody else? Give me 2 more.
The church is looked up as the house of refuge, where people go and seek help, and in every different ways and aspect, because the church is supposed to be a place where the Spirit of God is one, and where the people of God should demonstrate love.
That's good. All right, I'll take 1 more. These are great answers. Some of them are reflective on what I had, but I'll take 1 more. Why should we make the church a safe place for children and young people?
Because they need a safe space to go to. There are so many unsafe spaces around. It's just depressing.
Yes.
Too many unsafe spaces.
Yes. All right, thanks, family. That's very good. Let me just share again, this list is not exhaustive by any means. The legal framework is great. And that's so important in today. But let me show you my 5. Why we should make the church a safe place. 1, which kind of mentioned, the church should be a safe place for everybody. Young people, old people, poor man, rich man, Chinese man. The church should be a safe place for everyone. I remember listening to a talk some time ago by our brother Paul Hemmings, and he was mentioning in the talk, he spoke from Luke, and he was saying that the church is a place for those who are like us, who are not like us, and who don't like us. A church must be a place for those who are like us, those who are unlike us, and those who don't like us. The church must be a safe place for everyone, including our children and young people. Second thing I argued, I think this came from Jeanette. The world is not a safe place. I don't need to go into the details. The recent news, the world is just not a safe place. There are very few safe places in our nation today, and the church should be that place where children is safe. Third reason I argued why the church needs to be a safe place for children and young people is the failure of of the family. I believe the Bible teaches family, Hampton Green, that the family is the primary place where children and young people are discipled, not the church. One more time. The family, the home, is the primary place where children and young people should be discipled. So Christian parents should understand that to be their primary role if they have kids. It's not the primary role of elders, the deacons, the Sunday school teachers. In God's government, in God's ideal, is that the first experience of him, the first encounter of him would be in their homes. But because the family is not fulfilling that mandate, the church is even under more pressure to do it. So the family is just, we know the stories, absentees, fathers, mothers being irresponsible. Sunday school today is, when you have devotions in some schools, you would think growing up, there's some songs that we just knew the songs. Today in devotions in some high schools, the kids just don't know the songs. They don't know some basic Bible verses. I've been there, and it's because the family is failing and the kids aren't being sent to church. So the onus is so much more on the church because of failure of the family. Here's scripture in Ephesians 6 verse 4. We know it. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. So the family, parents, the home is the primary place where children and young people are discipled, where they are instructed to know the Lord. But because the family is not doing that, the church must be that much more pointed and focused in doing it. So far I've said, the church must be a place for everybody. The world is not a safe place, and the failure of the family. Two more reasons. The future of local church. One trajectory, one indicator of the health of a local church is the number of young people and children. Like it or not, next 100 years, most of us, if not all of us, won't be here. The church will be, if the Lord does not return, the church will need to be led by others. So the more youth and children we have in our local fellowship, is that much more secured the future of a local church is. And that's just simply statistics. The fifth reason I have is reaching generations. There are some folks that we cannot reach. My generation can't reach because I don't speak their language. I don't understand their thought patterns. It takes many times a young person to communicate to a young person in the way that they understand it. Here what the psalmist says in Psalm 145, he says, one generation shall praise your work to another and shall declare your mighty acts on the glorious splendor of your majesty and your wonderful works. I will meditate. And I close off in verse 6 says, men shall speak of your power, men shall speak of your awesome acts, and I'll tell of your greatness. The idea, family, the more we create spaces for children and young people in our churches, and the more we disciple them and love on them and equip them and send them out to reach their friends, to reach their classmates, to reach their neighbors, to reach their schoolmates, is the more generations can be reached. There is, when they see me, they see gray hairs, they see beard, they say, boy, you're old, you can't talk to me. But when they see Aaron, when they see an Annabeth, when they see a younger person, they'll more be inclined to speak to somebody who's closer to their age. It's God's plan that he wants to reach generations through generations. So I've said, family, why the church needs to be a safe place for young people. It must be a safe place, everyone. The world is not a safe place. The failure of the family, the future of a local church, and the mandate for the church to reach generations. I'm sure there are many more. The legal one that Brian mentioned is so important, but those are just 5 I want us to sit with as we look and contemplate the how. Now, these are true. And there are many other reasons I'm sure you can add. Now, how do we become a safe place for young people, for children? If these reasons are true, and we agree, I think that they are true, how do we do that? I want to look on a text today. It's found in 3 places, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I just want to look on the Matthew and Mark passage. This is a very familiar story. This is Matthew 19, 13 to 15. Excuse me. It says, then some children were brought to him so that he, Jesus, might lay his hands on them and pray. And the disciples rebuked them. But Jesus said, let the children alone and do not hinder them from coming to me, for the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. After laying his hands on them, he departed from there. That's Matthew 19, 13 to 15. Similar story is found in Mark 10, and this one that we'll just camp on. The same story, a bit more details. Mark 10, 13, 16. And they were bringing children to him, there Jesus, so that he might touch them. But the disciples rebuked them. But when Jesus saw this, he was indignant and said to them, permit the children to come to me. Do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Truly, I say to you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a child will not enter it at all. And verse 16, Jesus, and he took them in his arms and began blessing them, laying his hands on them. Very interesting story here in Matthew and Mark. It's also in Luke, but I also want to focus on these 2 passages. Let's just talk a bit, observe what's happening. Verse 13 says, and they were bringing children. We don't know who they were, but the context suggests that they were family members that were bringing children. And the word children there, it's used when they're describing Jairus' daughter. So theologians argue that it describes people, kids, between infants and 12 or 13 years old. The Luke passage depends on the version you have, actually says babies, right? So the kids were we can assume between infants and 12 or 13 years old. And they were bringing them to Jesus so that he might touch them, he might bless them. Jesus was a rabbi. They want the rabbi to bless him. But the disciples, the ones who were closest to Jesus, were the ones who were rebuking them, who were hindering them. Now, I thought for a moment, I asked Claudia, maybe somebody can help me. I cannot readily remember a time when folks were coming to Jesus and the disciples were rebuking them, were running them. That's what they're doing. In Jamaica, they were running them. They say, go on, but no. He has no time for you. I can't remember another occasion, maybe you can, where folks were coming to Jesus for help and disciples were rebuking them, were saying, he has no time for you, go away. So those who were closest to Jesus, very important, now, those who were Christ followers, they were identified as Jesus' disciples. They're the ones who are saying, go away, he has no time for you. And look on Jesus' response to how his disciples were responding to children. He was indignant. The Bible says he was upset. And he said, permit the children to come to me. Do not hinder them. So what you're doing now, disciples, you are hindering them from coming close to me. Please, disciples, my followers, permit them to come to me. Do not hinder them. And then he uses the children as an illustration to explain how we should approach him and the kingdom of God, which we won't get into that. But he's making the point that we should have childlike faith as we approach him and as we live for him and obey him. But very important here, family, that those who are closest to Jesus were the ones who were hindering children, But also notice Jesus' response to the children. He was saying to them, don't hinder them, allow them close. And then look on just the compassion he had, the loving compassion. He took them in his arms and then began blessing them and laying his hands on them. That's the picture of compassion and love and patience and grace. So he took the time to bless the children, to pray for the children, and to really do what the family were asking him to do. There are four things here, family, that I want us to see, and it answer the question: how can we make the church a safe place for children and young people? There are four principles, and it's captured. I did an acronym for the word safe, and this is it. For the church to be a safe place for children and people, we must see their value. We must have authentic fellowship. We must create an environment that they can be free to be themselves, and we must equip them and release them. See their value, authentic fellowship, freedom to be themselves, equipping and releasing. It's very interesting to note the disciples, when you do background reading in the passage, children, even though they were deemed to be a blessing from God, the Jews understood children to be God's heritage. Children in the Jewish tradition weren't highly valued. It was men, and then children and women were there. So disciples did not see the value of children. And I am saying to us, Hampton Green, if we are to become a church with a safe place for children and young people, we must see their values. And we have to do three things. It's not here, but three things that we must do. It's so important. And it came out even in our prayer time. Here's the first thing we must do to see their value. We must, him and our family, we must see their promise above the problem that they cause. We must see their promise above the problem that they may cause. Some children are very difficult. If you teach, if you're exposed to the classrooms, even I'm sure in our own Sunday school, you have some kids that are very, very difficult. I've been to no less than maybe 95 to 100 youth camps over the many years, and you have some kids, some young people, easy deal with, no problem, just they're fine. You say lights out, you say go here, they go there, fine. But you have some children that my granny used to say, they must test your faith. They test your commitment to Jesus. And many times, at a function of their family, at a function of their problems, a function of their own struggle. And if we are not mindful, Hampton Green, we may see their problem that they're causing above the promise, above the potential, above the purpose of God in their lives. So part of us seeing their value is asking God for the eyes to, yes, acknowledge the problem, acknowledge the struggles that they bring, but Lord, give me your eyes to see your promise for them, your plans for them. Help me to see that they are promised. There's a song that we just sing. I don't know if I still sing it in our Sunday school. I'm a promise, I'm a possibility. You say it's not a song, I don't know. But every child is a promise. Every child is filled with potential, and they just need the right environment to help them to that potential. So first thing I want to say, Hampton Green, is creating a safe place. We must see their value. The disciples didn't see their value, and how we do that? We see their promise above their problem. Next thing, if we see their value, is the next P. We want to have the right persons to serve them. Want to have the right persons in serving Sunday school. Want to have the right person serving in youth ministry. want the right persons who have the heart for children to serve our children. Not everybody is meant to serve in Sunday school. Everybody is meant to serve in the youth ministry. Some persons are naturally gifted at it. Some persons just can't handle children well. So I think as a church, we need to do what we can to train and equip the right persons to serve our children. Last point here, friends, under seeing their value, I've said firstly is to see the promise above the problem. Secondly, have the right persons to serve them in Sunday school, in youth ministry, in boys club, in girls club, whatever the ministry is, but have the right persons who love children, who love God, we train them, have them to serve them. And thirdly, I want to suggest Hampton Green that we give them a seat at the table and we include our children in our programming and our planning. Very important. We include our children and our young people. We think about them in our programming and in our planning. Two big ways on this point. At my church, Harbour View, I've said to my leaders, I don't know, full disclosure, I don't know how Hampton Green does the breaking of bread. I don't know, all right? But how we do our breaking of bread in Harbour View, I said to my leaders that how we do it is anti-young people. How we do it, or how we do our breaking of bread currently, only the very spiritual can benefit. In January, watch night service, I had the privilege of baptizing 11 persons. Of those 11 persons, the oldest could have been 18. So most of them were most of them were teens. A few of them were under 10. No, all of them were in the teens. And they're mostly unchurched. So they came to Sunday school. They got saved in Sunday school. Some got saved through camp. And they're baptized on watch night service. And we have a program where we teach them about breaking bread before and stuff. But when they went to breaking bread family, it was so difficult for them to understand the hymns, understand just how we do it. No, there's nothing wrong with hymns. We should sing our wonderful. There's nothing wrong with our hymns. I love hymns, right? But the young people were lost, and not just those who are baptized, even those who were there before, between age of 15, 25, they still struggle with how we do our breaking of bread. And many times when I have a discussion, most often than not, I'll hear somebody saying it's because they don't understand, or because they're not spiritual enough, or give them time to grow. Now, all that may be true, no problem. All that may be true, but is there a place that we can tweak the way we do breaking our bread in a way that make more sense to our young people? We still must do it. I agree. I think we must do it every Sunday, right? We should do it as often as we can. But can we consider just for a moment a method that makes more sense to those who are not as spiritual as we are? I think, family, and can take some Q&As after that, after we finish. I think if we are to see the value of our young people, of children, we must consider them in our programming and our planning. One of the practical way I've learned in including them, in giving them a seat at the table. I remember when we were doing some renovations, and just wasn't even intentional, but I asked a young lady, one of our youngsters. She was about 19 at the time, and I asked her what she thought about how the church looked, right? And she gave it to me. At that time, we had carpets. That's one of the things in church. And she just said, Uncle Germaine, those are old. And she explained her vision of what church should look. And I listened. I really, really did. I took it to the eldership and say, let's see. We can't afford everything, but let's listen to what she is saying, and we'll create that space, even more young people to give us a take on how they see the church looking. Now, I know Hampton Green, we're doing some renovations, and I think it's useful just to say to your young people, how do you see the church looking aesthetically? I know they may give you some big ideas, but it's a useful convert to have, because we won't be here 100 years from now, they will be here. So aesthetically, how does the church need to look to attract a young person or a child? I think it's a useful conversation to have. I hope you follow me. So the first thing I'm saying, family, is that we must see their value. And I mentioned 3 points here. 1, we must see the promise above their problem. We must take time to ensure that we have the right, safe people leading our children, leading our youth ministries. And thirdly, I'm saying, involve them, listen to them, consider them in our planning and in our programming. There's one more thing here. We're not there yet. I hope we'll never get there. As it relates to the right persons. But I know in some jurisdictions, they require even a police report for a person to serve, and in the States, they require a police report and a background checks for a person to serve in their children's ministry. That's so serious I take it. And while I don't think we need to get there, I just think we need to be very intentional and very calculated in the persons that serve in our kids ministry or in our youth ministry. Start seeing their value. Other one for S.A.F.E, how do you create a space, is authentic fellowship. And this has to do with discipleship. We need to ensure, Hampton Green, that amidst our programming, amidst all our planning, amidst all our events, amidst all that you do, we are keeping the primary mandate, which is to be disciples and to make disciples. I've found, family, and you may agree or disagree, that as a brethren, the brethren church historically, we do well in preaching the word from the platform. We do very well. We are very strong in the platform ministry, as well as we should. We're very strong in preaching the word to the multitudes, as we should, and we should continue doing that. But Jesus went further than that. He preached the multitudes, then he had his 72, then he had his 12, and he had his 3. So I think it's so important as a church family, as we continue to preach the multitude, to the crowd, to the Sunday morning or the Wednesday night, that we in a very intentional way, we create an even smaller space where our young people and our children can be discipled. Why? The family is failing. It's not happening at home for the most part. So you and I must take up that slack. And as God pour into us, we pour into them. So I must ask, is there anybody that you're discipling now? Is there anybody that you're doing life with now, that you invite into your space? They come over for dinner. They come over after church on Friday. You go to school to pick up their reports. Persons who you're inviting in your life. You're sharing your stories in a stage and age appropriate way, so that they can understand that uncle and auntie have problems too, but God has helped them through those problems, and God has brought them to a place. Those things can't be had in the corporate gathering in a Sunday morning service. We need to move our discipleship, we need to extend our discipleship from the platform preaching to smaller groups. Jesus did it. Jesus, he preached a multitude. He had the crowd, the mixed crowd, saved, unsaved. He had a 72, he had a 12, he had a 3, and most of us argue he had a 1, who was John, the one who was closest to him. So I'll ask us, who is our 3, who is our 12, who is our 1? Young people and children, they need authentic fellowship. And the church answer to that is discipleship, is trying to cultivate a disciple-making culture. Over the years, Claude and I have invited a few young people to our home for dinner. And right now, there are two groups that I'm discipling, a group of younger men in their mid-20s and older men, 40s, thereabouts. And you just be surprised how meaningful those conversations can be. I've said to them that they can ask me any questions they want, any question, whether about married life, any question they ask, I will answer, because that gives me license to ask any question I want to ask. And the time has been sometimes very, very difficult. It's hard. It's sometimes tiring. It weighs on my schedule. It takes away from stuff. But it's worth it. It is so worth it. At Harbour View, we have what we call D groups, short for the discipleship group. And my younger group have four young men. One of them is a young man called Richie Jr. And I've been with this group for about 5 years. And now this group is at the point now where they're starting the other groups. So Richie Jr. has his own group who is discipling. And one young man from that group, about 2 months ago, he said to me how he's enjoying his group. And he's a quiet guy. He doesn't talk. Very, very quiet, very sheltered. He came to me, Uncle Jim, and I'm enjoying my group. I'm learning, I'm growing. And he shared some problems, some struggles that he's being helped with in his group. And God just encouraged my heart, because it really works. Because I'm discipling Richie, and Richie is discipling this young man, and he's being helped. So my second point, Hampton Green, is if we are to be a church, a safe place for kids, children, and young people, we must have authentic fellowship, and that's clearly expressed through discipleship. Yes, preach the word from the platform. We must not swerve from that. We must do it, but we have to move the word from the platform into the pews, into the homes, into the small groups, and walk with people. Invite them into our lives to see how we're living, to see how we relate to our wives, to see how we handle pressure and stress. One of the things young people struggle with, and I'll move on here, sometimes they will see uncle, auntie where they are now, and they think we are perfect. They think that we make no mistakes, that we have no problems, that we're always good, we're always believing, never afraid. And they see that as unattainable. They don't know how to get there. They say, boy, I can't be that. When we bring them close and they see our scars and hear our stories and understand, oh, Uncle Germaine struggled too. So if him struggle too, and he's where he's at, maybe I can get there. And that happens, friends, family, through authentic fellowship. So we must see their value. We must create a space for discipleship. And there are many resources available. There's a book I'll recommend. It's called Disciple Making Culture. I'll share it at the end. It's very, 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 very good. I want to strongly recommend it to leaders. We're getting it at Harbour View for leaders. It's very good. And it really, really, really takes you from ground zero, how you can develop a culture of discipleship at the church. Because discipleship is not a program, it's a culture, the book argues. And I agree. Must hurry on. Third point, to create a safe place. S is seeing their value. A is authentic fellowship. And free is freedom. And the third point is freedom to be themselves. And this includes freedom to fail, freedom to make mistakes, freedom to just to be who God has called them in all their glory. So and this flows from A, as we disciple them, as we pour into them, we want them to truly become who God has called them to be. We're not trying to make mini-me's. We're not trying to make other Germaines. God has called them to be themselves, to reach others like themselves for his glory. So there are certain things sometimes they don't want to suggest, they don't want to do. And sometimes it may seem scary, and we do need to manage that. We do need to give them guidance, but also need to give them freedom just to express themselves, just to be themselves, even to fail. As we prepare them, as we train, we really need to give them room and freedom. And one thing I've found that helped in this part, family. The more a young person or child understand that you love them for who they are, and you're willing even to go into their spaces and do what they like, and involve yourself into their environments, is more willing they are to be a part of our lives, and to open up to us, and just to be who God has called them. So this must include knowing when to share our judgments. I'm gonna give you two stories. I remember the first time, not first time, was maybe second or third time. I was breaking bread. So I went up to the prayer about the emblems, and at that time when I went up to pray about emblems, I did not have my shirt in my pants, right? So my pants, my shirt was the kind of shirt that you do in your pants. I didn't wear my shirt in my pants, right? And after done, I prayed, 100 emblems. A sister came to me. I said, next time when you break bread, put a shirt in your pants. And she was kind of harsh. But at the time, I think I was still mature enough not to take it personal. And I heard her, and I never did it again, at least for the next few times. At the time, I remember this young man got saved. His name was Jazeel. He got saved in church. And Jazeel had his hairstyle was way up here. I mean, he's had a big hair. And it caused a lot of the church folk, a lot of our people, angst. It caused them dread. They just couldn't understand why I'm here to be like that. And I was saying, hey guys, just leave him alone, just get saved, he's fine, just leave him alone. And the elders was arguing that, hey, leave him alone, it's not, just leave him alone. But it really was a problem, it was a struggle. And the noise quieted down, and just Jazeel grew in the Lord, he was discipled, and eventually Jazeel cut his hair. Now, that doesn't mean anything per se, but eventually Jazeel cut his hair. My point is, sometimes young people, they won't look like us. They won't sound like us. They won't dress like us. They won't be like us. But we've given them freedom to be themselves. And that doesn't mean that we don't correct, right? But if every time we speak to a young person or a child, we are correcting them, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. So we must, I've learned, we must try to catch them doing something good and say, yo, good job. Catch them doing something good and applaud them, affirm them, encourage them. So when they're not doing something good, you have the freedom to correct them. It should not be each time you speak to a young person or a child, we are correcting them. That does not make any sense. So give them freedom to be themselves. Yes, we have guidelines. I'm sure you have a dress code at Hampton Green. We have guidelines, and guidelines are good. But within those guidelines, allow them to express themselves and be themselves. It's so important. Last point, I don't want to time. My last point, we must see their value. Hampton Green, we must disciple them through authentic fellowship. We must give them the freedom to be themselves. That also means give them time to grow. Give them time to know the Lord. Give them time to mature. Give them time to fail. Love them through it. Be with them. Walk with them. And finally, we must equip and release them. As we disciple them, we must have them to know that you are also here, young person. You're also here to be a disciple and to make disciples. So we don't lower the standard. Make them know that, hey, you are here to be a disciple and to make disciples. So we equip them and release them to do exactly what God has called them to do. I think a church that sees their value, a church that has authentic fellowship, a church that gives freedom to be themselves, a church that equips and releases, I think this church will be a safe place for young people and children. It takes a while. That's why I love the word making the church, because it's present, continuous. And the goal is this, that one generation shall praise your works to another and shall declare your mighty acts. And verse 6 says, men shall speak of your power, your awesome acts, and I will tell of your greatness. Because of verse 4, that one generation shall declare your greatness, your majesty to the next generation. The idea, family, is all of us to serve the Lord. It's for youth and children to know that they're here to serve the Lord as we see their value, as we create an environment for authentic fellowship and discipleship, as we equip them and empower them, and just simply release them and give them freedom to be themselves. I think if we grow in these things, we be a church, a safe place for young people and our children.